It is now 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. I think next time I'll bring my gavel since it looks like I have to try to control this group more, but we'll get started here right at 7. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials, and streaming audience. Welcome to the February 26, 2024 regular city council meeting. We've got a few things on the agenda this evening. We are meeting at 26 South Paint Street here in Chiillicothe. I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bennett.
Here.
Payne.
Here.
Nickerson. Here. Barnes.
Here.
McKeever. Dement.
Here.
Henderson.
Here.
Prohl.
Here.
Creed.
Here.
Mr. McKeever let me know that he couldn't be here this evening. Is there a motion to excuse him? Never has anyone been excused so heartily. I'm going to say that Councilwoman Payne made the motion and Dr. Henderson seconded that. Would you please call the roll?
Bennett.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Mr. McKeever is excused. Now I'd ask Ms. Payne to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. To the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
President Shoemaker, at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the 3-day receipt rule for the minutes, please.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Did everyone receive the minutes and have a chance to review them? If there are no changes or additions, I would ask the clerk to call the roll relative to the approval of the minutes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. Now moving to the reports of committees. Development Committee, Mr. Dement.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Development Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. It is the second reading of an ordinance approving the action of the Planning Commission of the City of Chiillicothe and rezoning property located at 269 South Rennick Avenue, Chiillicothe, Ohio, from R3 to RC. I just wanted to make a notice that there will be a public hearing scheduled for March 4th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dement. Engineering Committee, Mr. Barnes.
Engineering has nothing on tonight's agenda, and we've had nothing to report.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Finance and Technology Committee, Mr. Prohl.
Finance has no items on tonight's agenda, but those watching at home will notice I'm on a different side of the room. It was decided that this is actually my best side, so for their benefit, I'm sitting over here. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Prohl, I just welcome you back too, and just mention that we give you our condolences for the loss of your father.
My family appreciates that. Thank you.
Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Human Resources, we did have a committee meeting this past Wednesday evening. It was a second meeting to establish the pay scale for the part-time summer and fall seasonal employees for the different departments, and that item is on the agenda this evening. I also have two other items on the agenda, item number 3 and 4, and these are both transit items. One is Title IX policy and Title VI policy and procedures, and the second is the drug and alcohol testing policy. That concludes my committee. Actually, I'd like to announce one other thing here. I would like to announce a committee meeting for this coming Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock here in council chambers. That is 228 for assignments 24-012, which is chief of staff position, and 24-013 engineering part-time pay rate. That concludes my information this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Parks and Rec Committee, Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Parks, Rec, and Tourism has no items on tonight's agenda. However, we will have an upcoming item on the following agenda, which will be concerning the America 250 OH project as well. And then we had a committee meeting this evening regarding feeding of wildlife on public lands. That meeting will have a secondary meeting further discussing the legislation, and that will be announced at a later time. And then I actually have one last quick announcement for the our next meeting on March 11th. Members of the Ross County Continuum of Care will be present to discuss more about this program, what they do to help folks in our community, those who are homeless, who are not, who are about to be, who may be couch surfing, etc. So they will come in and they will discuss this. So this will be a fabulous meeting to attend. And that is all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Next, Safety Service Committee, Mr. Creed.
Safety Service has one item on the agenda tonight. That is item number 5. It's the first reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating money for reimbursement for police department training. And that is all that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Creed. Mr. McKeever isn't here today, and I don't know if anyone from the Utilities Committee has any report for us. Hearing none, I'll move on to the City Services Committee. Ms. Nickerson.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have nothing on the agenda tonight, therefore we have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We don't have anything on the agenda, but we did meet this evening to talk about appointing Jeff Creed on the 911 county program. This is needed to be approved so that they can get their budget for an annual meeting. So that will be, I'll get with the law director tomorrow and get that on the next agenda.
Thank you. That concludes the committee reports. Moving on to reports of officials, Mayor Feeney.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. At the last meeting, I reported that Chad Harriet, who's the chief building official, would be here to give a report. He's had a family matter come up, so we're going to table his presentation to the next council meeting. He was going to report on sort of the state of affairs in the building department, as well as some recommended changes. So you may see a committee assignment request come before his presentation next week, but you can expect him at that next meeting. I want to give an update, kind of report, since many are new to council, about the county land bank. The Ross County Land Reutilization Corporation is known as the Land Bank. It was created back around 2016, 2017 because of an influx in grant money, and has operated since then, but almost entirely dependent on grants that come down from the state. The grants that come from the state are, for the most part, for the demolition and revitalization of abandoned and blighted homes. We have a grant that we received 2 years ago that it's expiring, and a grant that will become available to us. Applications, 2 of them, due April 1st. One is a brownfield grant. The Ross County allocation is $1 million for that grant, and that's not competitive. So that means Ross County is guaranteed $1 million. And we have been working. I should back up. The land bank, the board consists of myself, 2 county commissioners, the county treasurer, and a trustee from the largest populated township, which is Union Township, I believe. So 5 members between the board and our staff at the city have been for new potential projects under that brownfield grant. We've identified some, but one of the reasons I'm proposing this today is if anybody is aware of sites that potentially had contamination. So that could be an old gas station, that could be, anything. If you kind of knew that something weird used to happen there, that's something we could at least do what's called a phase 1 assessment. And I'm also bringing this up now so it gets out to the public. Phase 1 assessments are relatively inexpensive and kind of give us a path forward. But we can go all the way up to mitigation. Okay. Yes and no. Selective. Is that a sign for me to stop? In any case, that's $1 million. We also have $500,000 coming for the demolition of abandoned and blighted properties. So we have $1.5 million that will flow through the land bank this year. We have 20 properties identified. Half of those are probably in the city. And some county more challenging to demolish these properties because access is a challenge because there's no code, there's no residential building code outside of the city, which means access to properties is much more challenging. But we've been working with the townships and villages on this project, identifying field sites and identifying potential abandoned and blighted homes. Please send those our way and we can get those on there. But we'll meet again probably in March to solidify this application. I want to just pose the question. I think, Councilman DeMint, you mentioned a public hearing, but I think it was sistered right next to the ODOT meeting next week.
Oh, is that right?
I think you announced it for 6. I think the ODOT meeting's at 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and those, just from my experience, those public hearings are not, they're pretty quick. So I think you could do do what you want, but a 6:55 immediately prior to a council meeting has sufficed in the past. And that way, if the ODOT meeting goes long, we'll have a little bit more cushion. You could do it the same night too, but then we'd have to. What's that? Oh, it's not a committee meeting. It's well, so it goes. We tried. Or I tried. Sorry. Okay, so never mind. Forget I said all that.
My apologies, sir.
No, that's I did not realize that. I apologize. Okay, the last thing I'm going to comment on is there was a very significant water line break. That might be an understatement. On the Near East Side. Just a couple comments. One, appreciate everybody's patience with us on that. I'm told this is one of the more significant waterline breaks that we've ever had. There has been about half a basketball court torn up on Chestnut, and we will get that repaired as quickly as possible. But just keep in mind the asphalt plants are not open, and you can't pave a road with cold patch. So that will probably be the rough shape that it's in until the asphalt plant's open. I don't know the status to the minute of boil orders and water being shut off. It's my understanding water is going everywhere now. I know I shouldn't say it that way. Water's flowing appropriate places. But I know earlier today that there were some buildings that didn't have water. So again, appreciate folks' patience with that. Facebook is probably the best spot for up to date information on that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor Feeney. Any questions for the mayor? We will not take literally if anything weird happened on the property. We'll let you know about it because I've got too many relatives around Ross County and I don't want to have to report every weird thing that's ever happened. So next we'll go to Auditor Spetnagel.
Okay, I do not have anything on the agenda today, but I do want to call a year-end budget review or update on the year-end numbers. I was going to do that for March 11th at 6:30. Is that going to be a conflict?
We're going to have a review meeting on the 11th before the meeting. So what time were you talking about your?
I was going to do 6:30.
They're scheduled to be here at 6. Now,
Okay.
whether we'll take the entire time, that'll depend on how much information is, gathered in the first meeting. So I'm not saying that you necessarily need to change that, but the mayor may have a better idea about the timing of that particular one.
last
I will revisit that and send out an email with an updated date and time.
Thank you so much.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Law Director Villarreal.
Thank you. As Dr. Henderson had mentioned, we did receive a legislative request to prepare the America 250OH anniversary resolution, and that will be ready at the next meeting. We also received word of an additional opioid settlement, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart, that we anticipate the city will be receiving funds from that settlement soon, so that's good news. And just to give you an update as far as our attorney search, we are still looking. We have had some interest, but we're trying to hold off until we get the bar results, and hopefully we'll find our match. That's my report.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to audience participation. Any person wishing to address council must first provide his or her name and address. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and I will give you a warning when there is 1 minute remaining.
John Thacker, 990 Columbus Street, apartment 307 here in Chiillicothe. I do want to report that I tried the elevator. It does work. I'm glad to hear that. Also, I was very grateful to hear that starting Friday and then into Saturday, the Chiillicothe Transit trolley should be running. And if that is so, it'll be just in time for what is a lot of Statehood Day activity. I'm not sure if they're coordinated as such, but certainly there'll be people who will be coming into downtown for the various free activities that will be available at various locations. Lucy Webb-Hayes' home for one thing, and numerous other places. If you have a chance to go out to Adena Mansion, which is away from downtown, of course do that as well because it is free on Saturday. So it's nice that those will tie in together. Again, I don't think they're as coordinated as they might have been last year when they did have actual trolley that went out to the mansion. But just the fact that it's back and running is great. You know how much I love that one. And that's all I need to report. Thank you.
Next, we'll move to old business. Does anyone have any old business?
Excuse me. President Shoemaker, I'd like to ask that we move into executive session to discuss litigation updates.
I'll second that.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Motion passes. We are back, and I'm noting that at 7:31, City Council has returned from executive session, is now back in public session. Is there any other old business come before the council? I've got that's what we were just discussing with the law director, and so that's why I noted the time that we're back in. I've been involved in a lot of different issues about that, going back and forth, because if you're in executive session, it's kind of hard to vote. So anyway, we'll leave it at that for the moment. Old business, we've got the meeting on March 4th with ODOT, just so everybody is aware of that. That's at 6 o'clock at the ODOT facility. March 11th, I'm going to call a review session at 5, or no, that'll be at 6. The 4 o'clock, or the March 4th will be at 5. So March 4th at 5 and March 11 at 6 for a review meeting, but I'll send that notice out so that everybody gets it, including the members of the public. And I'll just once again mention that Dr. Henderson had said that a group was going to be here on the 11th, so it's important if we can be here to hear what they have to say to us about what's going on here in the city. I've talked with the mayor about a facilities tour, and I know they're working on trying to do something so they can take those of us that aren't as familiar with some of the facilities as other folks here are, so that they can take us around and give us some idea about that. The final thing that I have for old business is the invocation ordinance or prayer ordinance. I'm going to take a shot at trying to at least refine that some. I know there's some issues that have to be covered in that ordinance, but we've got things that talk about having had to put together a list of congregations in December, which obviously hadn't happened, and some of those things. So I'll get that to a committee so that we can get that done. I want to get back to having an invocation before we have our meetings, but trying to comply with that ordinance is almost impossible when you start to read it with some of the things that we would have to do. So that's the final thing I have for old business at this point in time. Were there any petitions or correspondence?
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I've not received any.
President Shoemaker, if I may, on that tour, is there, and since we have everybody here, I wonder if it would be appropriate to just discuss the best time of day for that? Would it be a council evening? I just want to coordinate around everybody's schedule.
That I'll leave to the pleasure of the group to discuss. So what are your thoughts?
Why don't I send a Wednesday slot and then a couple other slots? Just whoever signed, it'd be sometimes hard to get all 10 on the same schedule. So I'll send a few dates out and then go from there. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate that. Moving on to new business. Is there any new business? The only thing I would like to announce is that Clerk Moss now has some workspace over with the auditor, where she can actually have a place where she can feel comfortable working. So that's a great step forward, and I appreciate the work of the auditor to help us get that done. And it was a good meeting we had to get that work through. Hearing no more new business, let's now move to the reading of the ordinances and resolutions.
Item number 1 is the second reading of an ordinance approving the action of the Planning Commission of the City of the Chiillicothe in rezoning property located at 269 South Rennick Avenue, Chiillicothe, Ohio, from R3 to RC.
The ordinance shall be moved to the next agenda.
Item number 2 is the first reading of an ordinance establishing the pay scale for part-time summer and fall seasonal employees within the Parks and Recreation, Recreation Swimming Pool, Engineering, Utilities, Administration, Service, Police, Law Director, Human Resources, and Auditors Departments of the City of Chiillicothe for the calendar year 2024.
The ordinance shall be moved to the next agenda.
Item number 3 is the first reading of an ordinance accepting and adopting the Chiillicothe Transit Department's updated Title VI policy and procedure and declaring an emergency.
The ordinance shall be moved to the next agenda.
Item number 4 is the first reading of an ordinance accepting and adopting the Chiillicothe Transit Department's updated drug and alcohol testing policy and declaring an emergency.
The ordinance shall be moved to the next agenda.
Item number 5 is the first reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating $21,331.50 received from the Ohio Attorney General's Office for the Chiillicothe Police Department's participation in the Q4 Continuing Professional Education Program and declaring an emergency.
The ordinance shall be moved to the next agenda. There being no more business to come before City Council, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Councilwoman Bennett? And a second from Dr. Henderson. Please call the roll.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne?
Yes.
Nickerson?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Henderson?
Yes.
Prohl?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
We are adjourned.